Welcome to Daily 5 for Monday, November 6th, 2023. Now, I know that I have reviewed films and their remakes before. I know I did Suspiria, I'm sure I've done other ones, but I don't know that I've ever done two in such close proximity as the film I'm going to be talking about, the films I'm going to be talking about today and tomorrow. So the first one is, well, they're both the same name. They're just 77 years apart, I think? 74 years apart. The first film, or the original film, although they're both adaptations of the same book, so I guess adaptations instead of remakes is the right word for it. But the first adaptation, is a 1947 film called Nightmare Alley, based on a novel by the same name. And it is a black and white noir film. In fact, the reason I found it is because it's part of Criterion Channel's November Noir collection. And it concerns an individual named Stanton Carlyle, who is a person with a checkered past who starts working at a carnival, befriends a couple of people who have a very interesting and potentially successful act, takes that act, goes on the road with it, reaches great success, and then has a pretty severe fall. And I'm not really even worried about spoiling a movie like this because it's pretty clear where it's going right from the outset. Both films, I will say, because it was remade in 2021 by Guillermo del Toro, both films basically have the same plot. So there's not really much point in talking about the plot. I will get into the differences when I talk about it on Friday, because it will take a while to dig into the little differences between them. But I think I'm just going to spend these fives talking about what I like about each one. So in terms of the 1947 version, it's an hour and 11 minutes long. It's got great performances, as many of the movies of this time period do, because they don't have a lot of visual effects to rely on. They don't have necessarily, they're not going to go flying around the world shooting in different locations. At this point, you really were relying, in many cases, on the actors to give you these wonderful performances. And that's what you're going to get here. Now, I understand it's a 1947 film. It's in black and white. It's automatically going to have a limited audience. But for anybody who watches these types of films or likes these type of films, this is a good one. I really actually like a lot of what is done in here. There's some interesting sound design that's done in terms of a recurring sound effect that you hear that's meant to kind of haunt the main character. I like the ambiguity in this film. There are things that are not totally explained, and I think that's great. The morality of it is very on the nose. This is not a subtle film in terms of what it's trying to convey, but I also feel like there is some narrative misdirection in terms of how the morality is being applied. What I mean by that is there are points in the film where you might think that what's going on is meant to be, or that the characters think that it's some kind of divine retribution, that the main character, Stanton, is offending God. In fact, there's a whole sequence, I'll play the clip of it on Friday, where he refutes that. And while he comes across as not believing in anything supernatural, in anything faith-based, anything like that, the character clearly does have at least some fear of the supernatural and God. And so there's this interesting dynamic at play where the character has this persona of somebody who, eventually becomes very, very self-confident and then arrogant in defiance of any kind of supernatural or divine laws, and yet is clearly always afraid of it. And that's what makes the character interesting. And so when you watch the film, like I said, there's this idea that the character himself probably believes that he has been cursed or that God is punishing him. And yet nothing in the film actually suggests that. It all comes across as human failings. And in fact, there's a line that I don't think I got a clip of, where when somebody asks how Stanton got to where he is, the character says he reached too high, meaning that he was simply too ambitious and that he just went too far, crossed the line that he shouldn't have crossed, but nothing really to cement it as some kind of divine, revenge or anything like that. It's a really well-made film. It's pretty straightforward and simple. Fortunately for the time, there's nothing really offensive in it, so there's no racism, sexism, anything like that. Characters all feel like they're on equal footing. There's no sensationalism of carnival people, which is astonishing for, again, a film of this era. Not really, outside of the geek character, which is a fascinating. I did not really know what geeks were in terms of carnival, the old carnival stuff, but I'll talk about it on Friday because I bet you Lando doesn't know either. So again, if you like these types of films, if you like black and white and these types of movies, noir films of this era, I would say Nightmare Alley is worth a watch. It's on Criterion Channel, probably available other places to rent. I enjoyed it. You might too. Later.